The smell of pine and gingerbread filled my living room as I placed the final ornament on the Christmas tree. At 66, I cherished quiet holidays. Soft music, a warm fire, maybe a visit from my granddaughter. What I did not cherish was chaos. That's why my heart sank when my daughter-in-law, Rachel, breezed into my kitchen with her phone pressed to her ear, her voice chirping like bells. "Perfect," she said, ending the call. Then she turned to me, smiling too wide. "Good news, Eleanor. My whole family is spending Christmas here this year, just 25 people. Isn't that wonderful?" I froze, dish towel in hand. 25? She nodded. "Don't worry, you've got the space. And you're such a good cook, we'll make it work." It wasn't a question. It was a decree. Her assumption cut deeper than her words, that my home, my kitchen, my energy existed to serve her family's comfort. I set the towel down slowly, forcing a smile. "Perfect. I'll be traveling. You cook and clean. I'm not your servant." The color drained from her face. She blinked rapidly, clearly not expecting resistance. Before she could recover, I turned back to my tree, humming softly. If you're watching this, drop a comment, hit like and subscribe, because what happened next proved something every woman should remember. Age does not mean submission. My name is Eleanor Wells. I'm 66 years old, and I've spent too many years being treated like a maid rather than a mother or grandmother. This Christmas, that ended. For decades, Christmas was my pride. When my husband was alive, I cooked feasts, decorated every corner, welcomed neighbors and friends. But since his passing, the holidays had changed. My son married Rachel, and suddenly Christmas wasn't about family. It was about appearances. Rachel loved hosting, but never in her own home. She loved photos of lavish spreads, but never lifted a finger. And my son, caught between love and loyalty, always said, "Mom, it's just easier if you handle it." Easier. Easier to let me wear myself thin while they basked in the glow of praise. But not this year. The day after Rachel's announcement, I went online and booked myself a vacation package, 1 week in Vermont, a cabin by a snowy lake. The price wasn't cheap, but it was worth every penny. I printed the confirmation, folded it neatly, and slid it into an envelope marked, "Merry Christmas to me." 2 days later, Rachel came by again. She was already making lists. "We'll need extra chairs. Oh, and can you order that ham from the butcher? They'll expect it." I sipped my tea. "You'll have to handle that. I won't be here." She blinked. "What do you mean you won't be here?" I slid the envelope across the table. She opened it, her eyes scanning the words. "A vacation," she gasped. "Correct," I said, smiling. "I'll be in Vermont. You'll have the house." "The house," she repeated, her voice rising. "Yes, I've arranged for the keys to be in your hands, but everything else, cooking, cleaning, entertaining, is yours." Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. "You can't just leave me with this." "Rachel," I said calmly, "you invited them. You'll host them. That's how hosting works." Her face turned red. She muttered something under her breath and stormed out. But I wasn't done. Rachel thought she could bully me into being her staff. She didn't know that I had already contacted Mr. Delgado, my lawyer, to ensure everything was legally clear. While I was gone, no responsibility for damages or costs would fall on me. The house would remain in my name, but any expenses during her party would be hers to cover. I even alerted a few relatives, carefully planting the seed that Rachel insisted on hosting. That way, when chaos unfolded, everyone would know exactly who to credit or blame. Christmas Eve arrived. The house buzzed with noise, Rachel's relatives pouring in with suitcases, loud laughter, demands for wine and snacks. I carried my small suitcase down the stairs, my son watching nervously. "Mom," he said, scratching his neck, "are you really leaving?" I kissed his cheek. "Yes, dear. You and Rachel have everything under control." Rachel stood frozen by the door, plastering on a smile for her family, while glaring daggers at me. "Have fun," I called sweetly as I stepped into the cab waiting outside. Her mother asked, "Where's she going?" Rachel's forced laugh followed me onto the street. The drive to Vermont was peaceful. Snow fell in soft flurries, the world hushed and calm. By nightfall, I was curled in front of a fireplace in my rented cabin, sipping cocoa, watching the lake freeze under moonlight. For the first time in years, Christmas felt like mine again. Meanwhile, back home, things weren't so serene. My phone buzzed with texts from distant cousins and family friends. Rachel looks overwhelmed. The turkey burned. Her uncle slipped on the icy driveway, no salt out. There aren't enough chairs. Half the kids are sitting on the floor. I chuckled, setting my phone aside. I had no intention of answering. Rachel wanted 20 relatives in my house. She got them, along with every dish, every spill, every complaint. But the real surprise I left behind wasn't just my absence. In the guest room closet, neatly labeled, was a box of receipts. Years of grocery bills, utility payments, cleaning supplies, decorations, all with my name on them. A quiet record of every holiday I had funded while Rachel bragged about her hosting. I left them where her relatives would surely find them. And find them they did. The first call came on Christmas afternoon. I ignored it. Then came another and another, Rachel's name flashing angrily across my phone. I finally silenced it, leaning back against the cabin sofa with a mug of cocoa. Snow fell outside in heavy flakes, blanketing the world in peace. By evening, my cousin Marjorie called. She never called without reason. I answered. "Eleanor," she said, barely containing her laugh, "your daughter-in-law is drowning. Half her family is furious. They found the receipts." I smiled faintly. Ah, so they've finally seen the truth. Yes. They thought Rachel had been the perfect hostess all these years. But when someone opened the closet looking for extra blankets, they found that box. Every receipt had your name. Grocery lists, decorations, everything. They know now she was never the one keeping Christmas afloat. It was you. My chest warmed. Years of invisible labor, finally exposed. Meanwhile, back at the house, Rachel's hosting collapsed. The turkey was burned black, the ham undercooked. Her aunt whispered loudly that Eleanor never let things go wrong like this. Chairs were short, drinks watered down, kids restless. Rachel's father muttered that maybe it wasn't such a good idea to push me aside after all. And then the receipts made their way to the dining table. Her cousins spread them out, eyes scanning decades of proof. "Wait," one uncle said, tapping the ink. "Eleanor paid for all this? For years?" Rachel tried to snatch them up, stammering excuses. She wanted to. She insisted. But no one believed her. Her carefully crafted image crumbled. The next day, my son called. His voice was subdued, almost broken. "Mom, I didn't know." "Yes, you did," I said gently. "You just didn't want to admit it. You let her use me." He was silent. Then, "They're all saying she embarrassed herself, that she embarrassed me." "Actions have consequences," I replied, "and sometimes the hardest lesson is the one you learn in front of others." When I returned home 3 days later, the house was quiet. Rachel's relatives had gone, leaving dishes stacked, carpets stained, and tempers frayed. Rachel herself avoided me, her pride too battered to face me. But my son was there, sitting on the porch steps, shoulders hunched. "Mom," he said softly, "I'm sorry for letting it get this far, for letting you carry it all these years." I studied him, my heart aching. He wasn't a bad man, just a weak one. He had let Rachel steer the ship, even when it meant running me aground. "Apologies don't erase what happened," I said, "but they can be a start." He nodded slowly. As weeks passed, Rachel kept her distance. Word of her failed Christmas spread among relatives. She had wanted to be the star hostess. Instead, she became the cautionary tale. And me? I reclaimed my peace. I no longer felt obliged to slave over stoves or scrub floors for gatherings I didn't enjoy. If people wanted holidays, they could host themselves. I booked another trip for spring. This time, the Alps. One evening, Ella, my granddaughter, climbed into my lap with her book. "Grandma," she asked, "why didn't you stay for Christmas?" I kissed her forehead. "Because sometimes, darling, people forget how much you do for them, and the only way they learn is when you stop doing it." She thought about that for a moment, then nodded. "Mommy said everyone was mad, but I wasn't. I like it when you're happy." Tears pricked my eyes. Out of the mouths of children came the clearest truths. Later, sitting alone in my quiet kitchen, I reflected on the whole ordeal. For years, I had let others decide how my holidays looked. For years, I had been the silent worker, the forgotten backbone of every celebration. But not anymore. I had drawn a line, and on the other side of it stood my dignity. Rachel would never forget the year her grand Christmas collapsed. My son would never forget the moment he saw his mother walk away. And Ella would never forget the strength of a grandmother who chose herself. Have you ever faced betrayal? Share your story in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Revenge is refusing silence forever.